let's start with just understanding how to access your ShareFile instance. So first off, you'll see at the URL at the top, we have a subdomain, which is sharefile.rocks.sharefile.com. So my subdomain is ShareFile Rocks, right? So most likely your company has something that identifies it as being custom, either their name or something else, but not always is the case where it could be exactly that. So a lot of times you might be wondering, well, I got added, but I don't remember what that subdomain was, so I can access it directly. So let's start off on that foot. First off, I want to bring another screen over here. Whenever you get added into a ShareFile account, you're going to get a welcome email to activate your account. And that does two things. First off, that notifies you that you got added to the ShareFile account, but also it does give you an identity of what your URL is for ShareFile, and you'll see it down here. So if ever you forgot it, you can always look in your trash or anywhere that you might have kept it within your inbox, and you can kind of look for added you to ShareFile. You can look up basically those keywords, and you should be able to find that, and you should be able to find the URL here. Now, say for instance, you couldn't find that email, you can always go to secure.sharefile.com. This is our general landing page. If you know your subdomain, you can put it in here. But again, if you don't remember it, you can always click in don't know your account's subdomain. You're going to put in your email address, because within ShareFile, we always identify your user account based on your email address. So it's based on whatever email address you're using within your company or your organization. Or again, if you're an administrator or somebody that has set up ShareFile, that is the first email address you use to, of course, launch the site itself. So once you put that in, you'll get a nice little email here. And I already did this ahead of time. But this email will come in and showcase any subdomain that you've had access to or you've been a part of before. So you'll see here, my last login is probably the last login of the ShareFile account that you've used previously. So that is an easy indicator that this is my URL here. And then if I click on it, that will take me directly to the URL where this is the landing page. So let's get working on here. So you have two ways of logging in. First off, you have your employee user login. So under your organization, we do have the advantage of using single sign-on. So if you're used to using some applications within your organization and it automatically logs you in, your administrator could have set that up. You also have a direct login. So every account has a direct ShareFile account you can use. Now, for this example, we're just going to use the direct ShareFile account that we actually have. So again, I'm just going to refresh here just to refresh my session. I'm going to put my email address in, and I'm going to put in my password that I set up during my activation. As you saw in the last previous page there, you do have a forgot password. There is a self-service forgot password option, so that will walk you through retrieving your password if you forgot it. Again, that is all dependent on your email address directly. All right, so when you get into your ShareFile instance, you are welcomed with a customizable UI. So this is your dashboard that you will have, and you can customize it. I'm not going to get too much into this, but it's fairly easy that you can set up different dashboards to your liking here. So if you like a less crowded dashboard, you can always uncheck any of these options here to make it a little more streamlined. But you'll always come in here. The most recent files is actually one of my favorite dashboards here, because these are things that you've received recently or you've opened through ShareFile in terms of a document that you were working on. So this is the nicest one that I like, but the shortcuts are where I'm going to actually demonstrate a couple things that you need to know. So let's first go through some of the navigation of your dashboard itself and your left-hand side nav bar that you have here. I want to talk a little bit about it because sometimes people get a little confused at where items are kept or documents are kept within ShareFile itself. So let's first start out with that. First off, we have personal folders and shared folders. These are the two main places where you're going to keep a majority of the content that you have within ShareFile itself. First off, personal folders. Think of personal folders as kind of a My Documents folder within, say, if you're using Windows, to have personal files that perhaps you're not going to share with anybody, but you want to keep them here so that you have an easy way to access them later on. As you can see, I have some documents here. I could share these documents from my personal folder. I can add people to these folders for you to keep, again, that personal content to yourself without needing to share anything. Think of it as that. And then you have shared folders. Shared folders are just that. These are folders that either you create and share out to people, or you've been added to the folder from somebody else within your ShareFile instance. So there's a combination of both those that are in here. Majority-wise, you're probably going to spend a lot more time in your shared folders here than anything else. On the left, we have a favorite section. As you can see, you have stars next to pretty much any item within ShareFile. If I click that star, that will add it to a favorite. So if, say, for instance, there was some subfolders that I had within here and I've been working on them, if I favorite them, I can simply go to favorites, click in, and I'm able to get to that actual folder very quickly. Now, aside from just favorites, we do have a universal search bar at the top. So it will search any kind of, say, file name, or it also does do full contextual searching. So it could help try to find, say, something you're finding within a file, like a Word doc, and you're looking for a keyword. You can always use the search option up here. And the nice little feature that we have is we have the recent file section here. So anything you've opened up, worked with, you will actually see the most recent files here, just like I have on my dashboard. I won't get into this too much right now, but we do have a lot of third-party connectors. So you can connect to other data repositories to be able to aggregate your data within ShareFile. This is for another time, though. And then you finally have your file box and recycle bin. Let's touch on the file box. The file box is a temporary space with which some of our applications use to bring files into ShareFile. So if there wasn't, say, an existing folder that we were requesting a file to go to, you can choose the file box to temporarily store it. Also, we have an Outlook plugin. Our Outlook plugin, by default, if you're uploading a file from, say, your desktop and you're sending it off to somebody, it will be uploaded first to your file box. As you can see, by default, the folder actually has a retention policy, meaning it will automatically delete files in here within 180 days of when you upload it to the file box. So just be cautious of that. If there's, for some reason, you can't find a file or a folder that somebody created, first thing is always to check the file box and look in there if somebody sent you something. But of course, again, you can always refer over to the search option at the top here. From here, if I did actually have a file, I can check on those files and actually tell it to assign to a permanent file folder that's under my personal or shared folder. So again, don't think of it as it just being a container where you can't take files out of. You could totally take those out. Again, these is just more of a temporary space for files when they're being uploaded. And then finally, you have your recycle bin. Just like, again, any kind of operating system, if you delete a file, you usually have a recycle bin that you go to. So anything in ShareFile, if you accidentally delete it, don't worry. The first thing you want to do is come into your recycle bin and look into the files that were deleted. Now, this includes folders and files. Right here, I've deleted basically folders here with content within it. But if I did an oops and I accidentally deleted this folder, I can simply restore, and that's going to bring it back to the originating state that it was left in once I did delete that. Note that it doesn't necessarily say that up here, but they do have a retention policy, just like the file box. After 45 days of the item being in the recycle bin, it will permanently delete the item within the recycle bin. So be sure, if you're looking for something, try to quickly find it before those 45 days, because after that, that is permanently gone after that. And then finally, one other thing I wanted to showcase on the navigation is our inbox. Your inbox, think of it as your personalized mailbox within ShareFile itself. So if I'm receiving items from people within my instance, or say a client I'm sending something to and they send something back, you can always revert back over to your inbox to see any sent items or received items that I've gotten back. Now, of course, I haven't received anything for this account. It's a fresh new account. But see, I've sent a couple different things from here before. And so I can kind of track back, think of this as a way of tracking what I sent to somebody and being able to look what is in it. Because if I click in it, I could simply see what item I actually sent them. This is a Word doc. And I could see the history of if somebody did open it or download the document or view it, I'll be able to see that history. And then if, say, for instance, this person said they never got this file, I can always resend it or view the actual message itself from when I sent it. When I sent it out originally. So there's a great way from your inbox to be able to track the items that you're sending through ShareFile itself. You do also have an archive section. So if this was very important, maybe for auditing reasons, well, actually more so the received section, I can bring them into the archive section and keep them there for a longer period of time. All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of getting a file out, right? You just started your ShareFile instance or you just logged into your account and I need to share something with a client. You'll see on your dashboard, the two first icons here, your share files and request files is what you want to focus on. Ricardo later on is actually going to show you how to share from or give permission to a folder versus me just sharing a file or content out to somebody. So he'll show you that a little later. But say, for instance, I just want to share a file quickly. Now, I can take anything from my desktop and just drag it into the window, and it will upload that to ShareFile, and I'll be able to share that once it's uploaded. Or if it's already existing within ShareFile, I can use from ShareFile. If you didn't have the ability to drag and drop, you can always do from my computer, and it'll open up your Explorer if you're on Windows, or if you were in Mac, you will see that it will go into the Finder application. From there, I already have a document that I want to share. And I'm just going through my shared folders that I have. And I have a new higher documentation that I want to send out. I can add more files if I wanted to. I have multiple here. It doesn't need to be just one file. I can send a whole folder if I wanted to. For this instance, I'm just sending one. And right off the bat, it's going to be ready to send as a link. Now, I can create this link. And as you can see, it creates that unique identifier, and I could copy that and send it off to anyone who I need to give it to. Could be through, say, your Outlook or a mail client, or if you're using like Teams, like Messenger, anything of that sort of nature, I can send that to them. More particularly, though, I can also send an email directly through ShareFile itself. So all I have to do here, instead of getting a link, I could do it through email. And for this instance, I can use Ricardo. Now, Ricardo is already an employee within ShareFile, so it automatically finds his name. If they're not already a client or an employee within ShareFile, I could just type their email address in and send it off to them. Depending on the options, and I'm going to go through that shortly here, of how I'm sending this to Ricardo, he may or may not need an account to work with us in ShareFile itself. But other than that, I can choose his name. I can give it a subject to the email and a message, just like always. But let's backtrack a little bit in terms of editing those options, like I was telling you before. I have the options to adjust that share link that I'm sharing with Ricardo with that content that's included. So if, say, for instance, I only want Ricardo to view the document itself instead of being able to download, or we do also have the option to edit that live through ShareFile because it is a Word document. We work with Office applications like Word and Excel. But if I just want to view, I could choose that. If I want to expire this link after so long, I can always keep it forever as long as I want. But if I only want it to be, say, available for a day, I can have it for a day for compliance reasons. And there's other things down here below, like requiring the recipient to sign in. So if I actually did have this enabled, that requires Ricardo to log into his account from ShareFile first before being able to retrieve or view that document. That's very important because if we didn't have that checked, it could be set to anonymous, meaning he could just open it up and view it without logging in. But say, for instance, this is a new client, I've never worked with them before. If that's the case, they'll actually get an email to activate their account first with ShareFile, because then once they are required to log in and that account is created, then they'll be able to log in and then view the document that I'm seeing here. We have a couple other options down here. we do have something called versioning within ShareFile, which allows you to have additional versions of the document that I'm sending. This is just validating I'm sending them the very latest version of that document. I can add a watermark if I want to. And the most important thing, at least in my view, is to notify me when this is accessed. Because if I have that checked, when Ricardo opens that up, he logs in and views that document, I'm going to get an email to say he did exactly that. So that's very important. It is on by default. If you don't want the spam, that's fine. You can just simply uncheck that. And finally, you can send a copy to me as an additional way of validating that it got sent out. So I could save that, and then I could send that off, and off it goes to Ricardo to be able to actually view it. So let's take also, for instance, if I'm requesting a file from Ricardo, say, for instance, I need something from him. Could be something that I'm working on a project with him on, and I need a particular document. I can click on Request Files. And first thing you're going to see is the file location. This is where the file is going to come into your ShareFile account. Remember, we talked about the file box. That's a temporary space that files can be loaded into before you put them into a permanent location under your personal or shared folders. This is always by default. It's always going to go to the file box. We can't change that right now. But if I click on Edit here, then I can actually change it over to, say, a shared folder. Maybe we're both working on a customer that, of course, we have a relationship with. Maybe it's a project. I'm working with a third party here, and that's the client. I could tell them to bring it into this folder. And the same method that I can take, either I can grab a link and send it to them, or I can actually send an email to Ricardo to initialize that actual request. So again, if I do get a link, it's going to generate that unique link for me. I could copy that and send it off, whatever means I need to send it to him. Be aware, again, remember we have the edit options here. So if we didn't need the required sign-in, by default, that's what it is set to. I can also make this anyone or also anyone in terms of being anonymous, but I'm going to ask for information like the name and email. So this is good for reporting if I needed to look at auditing or reports later on. So again, if I did choose anyone or public, that doesn't require Ricardo to log in first before he uploads something to me that I'm requesting. So again, for more security, a better way of assuring that that data is secure is being sure that requires a sign-in. So before Ricardo can upload that data, he would have to log in and log into his ShareFile account that he has with us. Same thing when I share a link, I can also expire that link after so long. Again, this maybe is critical based on compliance. I can only let that link live out there in the public for 1 day. So we could choose 1 day. After 1 day, it's going to be void. So if they say, oh, past 1 day, I forgot to click on it, you can always generate a new request link to actually send it out. And then finally, you have the notify me when files are uploaded. So again, just like shares, when I'm requesting files, when Ricardo does upload something to me, it will tell me that he uploaded a file to that instance. So I could save, and that will update that link. And again, I can send that back out. So in conjunction, again, we have the send email, same as doing the share. Again, remember to check your edit options here to be sure you have the right access that you're looking for. And that's it. So again, the first thing you want to do when you do log in, get familiar with your navigation, just like I showed you. Get used to navigating through your folders, creating a folder. But the big thing is, if you need to send a file right off the bat, try just sending it over to another employee of yours, another associate, so you can see how that kind of interaction works out. There are, again, other ways that Ricardo will show a little later once we get into the different folder options when we are investigating that part. So the final part I'm going to show you before I send this over to Ricardo is our e-signing functionality. Now, you'll see the signature section on the left-hand side. If you do not see that, that is because we do have various different options within ShareFile in terms of packages. This is on our premium package. With premium licenses, you get the signature functionality, and this allows you to easily e-sign documents like Word docs, PDFs, and the sort. And you can quickly store those within ShareFile. So it's kind of a one-stop shop when we're talking about navigating through content, getting something signed, being able to archive it within here and share it out with clients. So it's your kind of, again, one-stop shop when you're going through that workflow. So today I'm actually showing something a little new that you may not see even if you have the signature option. We are building e-signature directly in the ShareFile. If you're used to us, if you've kind of played around with ShareFile before, you might have seen in the past where if I click signatures, it opened up our e-signing tab. It would take you out of ShareFile. Now we're getting that experience within ShareFile here. So what I'm going to actually do is send a simple signature over to Ricardo to get signed. And there's one cool thing that I really like about the new native e-signature functionality that I feel a lot of people were asking for, and I'll show that here today. But as you can see, I can quickly search through here all the different signatures I've sent and be able to see a history of who I'm working with, if there's something pending. As you can see, if it's expired or completed or it's in progress, you can see all that from here. You also have a way of filtering out those options. But let's quickly get something signed. We'll touch on bulk send and sign yourself in a later webinar, but for today, we're just going to send a simple signature. And all I'm going to do here is I can, again, drag and drop, say, a Word doc that I need to get signed or a PDF. For this matter, I've already had a file within ShareFile that I'm going to use. We do have the ability to use templates. So if it was something consistently you're sending out to clients, maybe it's an accelerated agreement in terms of getting somebody a contract over to get signed before working with them, you could use a template to do that. But for today, we're going to use just a Word doc that I have. Today, we have just a new hire doc. Say, for instance, I'm onboarding Ricardo. He's brand new to the company. I need to have him sign a simple document before I could start getting him on board and he could start to work. So, of course, I can add additional files here if I had multiple, of course, files or content that I need him to sign. You can have it so that you could set a signing order if you have more than one person that needs to sign. You could send in bulk, again, something that we're not going to go through today. But for today, we're just going to type Ricardo's name in here. Again, as you can see, this automatically loaded because Ricardo's already a employee within ShareFile. If that wasn't the case, again, you could just simply type the person that you're going to be sending this to and their email address, and then what their role is. You can actually set them up as a viewer or signer. Today, he's just going to be a signer. If you're a viewer, you're just basically on for the ride just to see how everything is going, be sure everything looks good with the document being signed. And then we can click next. And then we have our import fields on the left here. So I can simply drag and drop my signature field. I have my date field here, and I have my text for my printed name. And you can, of course, always adjust if you need to. And then you could adjust the different fields here when you actually click on them. So if there's anything that you need to update in terms of like format for the date, you could do that. But I'm going to go to next here. And that cool thing that I was telling you about is now I can actually tell where this document is going to actually reside once Ricardo finishes the signing. So we have the complete signing of the document. It's done. That document is going to go now to the folder that I choose. I'm going to choose one that we created a little earlier. Let me bring it down here. We have the e-signature folder. And again, you can name this folder like the client's name, or say, for instance, if it's a project name, you want to keep that signed document in there. I'm going to give that over to him. I can add a note to them. So when he gets this notification, I can add a description in case, again, it needs a little detail. I can set an expiration on the amount of days that I have that document out there that needs to be signed. After 30 days, that timer goes off. It's basically going to help avoid that document, or it's going to be basically past due. You do have other security options. We do have passcode. So if I enable that, I can add a passcode for this so that if that is something that I can send over to Ricardo to add in as an extra security layer, I can send that to him. And then also we do have knowledge-based authentication. You might know this if you're in the field, things like in the tax industry, accounting, KBA, as we call it. That is actually used quite a lot to validate the person and who they are truly before they sign a document. So that's always good to have. And then I can add some other default settings down here we won't get to today. But I'm going to actually send that signature off to Ricardo. As you can see, that sends off, and now I'm going to see all the information that I have. I can always revise this, or I can void it if I did something wrong. But I could see the activity of what's going on here. Even gives the IP address and information about when I sent it. So now this is actually going to go to Ricardo, and perfect timing because I'm going to switch this now over to Ricardo. So now he could take over and showcasing how he gets that signed, and then he'll continue on with the rest of the webinar. Ricardo, are you ready?
Yep. Yes, awesome. I am. Thank you, John. Now sharing what you all should be seeing is the document that John has shared with me to retrieve a e-signature. So within the email, the first thing that I would do as the recipient is I would click on review and sign document. And that will bring me to the document here. And once I have gotten it, I will just simply follow the red marks. Anything in red is indication that I need to enter some data. So I would click on the signature first. I can either choose to draw or type. I'm just going to click on type here, type in my name, and then click apply. And then I will just move down to the next one. It's asking me to enter text or print my name. And then last, it's asking me to enter the date. So I would just choose today. And now that I'm seeing green, this is indication that I have completed everything I need to, or that has been requested of me on this document here. So at the bottom here, you do see some other options. I have the ability to download this document, or I could just simply decline. If I did not want to sign or follow through with what they're asking of me, I can just decline, and that would go back as a notification to the sender of the document. If you have a document that has multiple pages, or it's going to take you some time to go through and complete things, maybe it's the deed to a house or something real estate wise, where you have to initial a lot of pages, you can save your progress throughout that signing progress there. And once you're done, you would just click on submit signature and then submit again. And you're presented with a completed version of this document here. There are a couple of things you can download from this area now. You could download the original, which is not going to have any signatures or information on the document. You can download the completed PDF, which is just going to give you the document itself, the completed version of the document that you see here. Or you can download just the signature certificate, which is, again, another validation or verification that you have completed the document, and here's your signature certificate here. Or you can do a combination of both the document and this signature certificate. I know that this document's now executed, and when I click on the history tab, overview is just giving me a little bit of information about the document here, or a summary of this document. And clicking on the history tab gives me a outline of what's been taking place with this document and its progress to being signed. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to close out of this document area and actually go into the account for an employee user as if I were an employee user on John's account. I'm going to refresh here, just make sure everything's up to date. And the document we just signed, John mentioned that was going to be placed in the e-signature folder, or he requested that to be sent to the e-signature folder. So I'm going to show you that completed document in that folder location. And to get there, I would go from folders to shared folders. And I see this e-signature folder here. And when I open it up, I have that completed document here. And when opening this document, you'll see the signatures that were requested and date and all that good stuff here. Now, how do we create a folder? The main way, or the easiest way, is just to navigate to your top level here. The shared folders area is not technically a folder, it's more of like a directory, but any folder created right underneath or with it at first, any folder that's created first in shared folders is going to be your top level. Folders created within those folders will be known as subfolders. So to do that, I would just hover my mouse over the blue circle with a plus sign, click on create folder. I'm going to call this one agreements because we're going to pull a client agreement in here later on. I could add details about this folder, any type of information about what type of data is going to be gathered in the folder. I can add people to this folder. I'm going to hold off on that for now because once this folder is created, I'm going to show you how to another way of adding people to the folder. Or I can add a template to the folder. If you have an established, just like setting of folders that you have previously created as far as templates, those can be added as a bone structure to the new folder. That way you don't have to recreate folders over and over. And my storage zone is just going to stay the same there. And I would just simply click on create folder. Now I have my folder. I haven't pulled any data in here yet, but now that I have my folder created, I do want to add some people to the folder. And to do that, I would choose the people tab, and then I can click on add people to folder here. This is going to allow me to either search previously created employee users, or I can create a new user by entering their email address and first name, last name. Anyone who accesses this type of link or this folder invitation for the first time will automatically be created as a client user. For today, I'm just going to enter John's name since he's already in here, and we'll choose him here. And from there, I see that he's now being assigned to this folder, and I can give him the permissions I want him to have within the folder. I'm going to keep it with the defaults now. We're seeing view, download, and upload. If I wanted him to carry a little bit more responsibility within the folder, I could allow him to have admin and delete. As far as alerts, I could give him alerts when files are going to be uploaded. If you were to have admin, this will become eligible to be selected as far as alerts on downloads. I can notify users when they're being added to the folder, and I can apply these settings to subfolders if this particular folder were to have any subfolders. We did see the edit message piece earlier when John showed you how to share by using an email, but clicking on these options give you the capability of adjusting your message for the email or adjusting your message within the notification, and you can get a preview of what that's going to look like for the customer by clicking on preview email. I'm going to cancel back out of here and then just click add. At that point, John's added to the folder. He would receive an invitation letting him know that he's becoming a part of this folder. And because he already has credentials established, he would just log in and now see this folder. But again, if he were a first-time recipient, they would be sent through a process of getting an email and password set up so they can see this folder. I'm going to go back into items now, and now I'm just going to pull a document in or upload a document into this folder. A couple ways that can happen. We could drag and drop. We could browse files. I'm just going to pull from my other monitor here and just drag and drop it. And I see that agreement now uploaded into the folder. And then, as John mentioned earlier, I can now share from this folder. I could do it by either just selecting the document, and I see my share option here. You're going to get the same settings that you were seeing earlier. Creating a link is just going to create a public link. And when we go into edit options, we have our same options as far as the access, who can access it, what they can do when they access it, and how long this link is going to last. We have always linked to the latest version. If you were to have versioning turn on for a folder or a file, meaning you're allocating multiple versions of that particular document, this option is always going to link your share link to the latest version of that document, like the most up-to-date version. And I could select to be notified when the link has been accessed. Another way to share is just to open up the document entirely, and we see our share option here as well. All right. Next, I wanted to show personal settings as far as your notifications. You have the ability to select the frequency, how often you want to receive those. And to do that, you would go into personal settings here. You would go to edit profile, and as you scroll down, we see our email notifications here, our frequency, and the default language we want to have those emails sent in. And if you want to receive any bounce back, say you're sending to someone who might not have an up-to-date email, you want to be notified of that, and you'll get a bounce back email saying that who you're trying to send to doesn't have a valid email and the reasoning behind that. Okay. Our next area I wanted to show is our applications. The web app itself, or the platform here, I like to think is the palm of a hand, and we have some fingers or some digits within our applications that link to this platform. To get to those, you will go to your top right and click on apps. And depending on your environment, is what is going to be listed first. So if you're in a Windows environment, you'll get all your Windows applications listed at the top first. If you're in a Mac environment, you would see apps for Mac at the top here, listing those first. But to go through these, we have ShareFile for Windows, which is essentially a virtual drive that links to your ShareFile account. It mirrors whatever you have in the web app on your desktop locally there, and sort of gives you a little ease of access rather than having to continuously log in through a web browser. We have an Outlook plugin. This can be installed within Outlook, and again, ties your account through Outlook so you don't have to log in through the web app to share links. You can simply choose documents through the plugin here. It'll list your folder structure as exact as you see it in the web app and allow you to choose those documents and create share links that way. You can also create request links and even add a request link to your email signature, making it easier for people to securely share things with you. And we have another plugin for Gmail that works very similar to the Outlook plugin, again, allowing you to use that access your folder tree of your ShareFile account through Gmail. All right, and the last thing I wanted to show was our resource center, and that is at the bottom right. This is a pretty important area if you have any questions about how to do something or want to catch up on maybe a webinar that you've missed or tutorials that you want to check out. This would be that area to look at. Looks like I have some updates here, some alerts, but we have our getting started, which will show will direct you to product documentation on these subjects here. When we go into what's new, this is sort of letting you know new features that have been implemented and new things happening within the ShareFile platform. And we have our support article area. This is our product documentation, and then how-to videos. So these are, again, are very useful if you have questions, just, a quick, simple question on how to do something. I would come to this area first, and it will get you right to our product documentation and give you instructions on how to do that. But that is essentially it from my end. I guess we'll open it up for some Q&A now.
Can I change the logo on top to my company's logo? And could this be added to email templates to the clients as well?
Yeah, I can take that real quickly. This is certainly more of a administrative, of course, I would say endeavor. So your administrator for your ShareFile account, or if you are the administrator in this, of course, this training, if you come down to settings, you'll see your admin settings down here. And then on that, you're going to see company account info. And then you're going to see edit company branding. So yes, this is definitely one place you want to, of course, start with when you first have your ShareFile instance to give it a feel of obviously your own, but also it gives when you're sending off a link or you're requesting a link like through email, gives a little bit more validation, right, with your own, of course, logo and information. So once you click that, you're going to see at the top, first off, you can start with your account name. You could go with the basics here, but what I would say to do is click on the advanced appearance options, because from here you have different things like, again, the page title, the header options at the top here, the login page, just like you saw my login page, I had customized the background and added in the logo. So you have various different options to customize that. And then finally, you do have the email options. And you saw I have that ShareFile logo, just like you saw when Ricardo got my notification, that logo will pop up. The cool thing that I always like to hint to also is the header information, the footer information within the body of the message. These are good spots just to give awareness. A lot of people, what they'll do is like for the footer text, you could put in, say, a terms and conditions, or any kind of, say, compliance legal writing that you would want to add to that, just to give, again, some additional validation. But hopefully that helps. Again, if you don't see this and you're not an administrator, I would first reach out to them, and then they can actually help, of course, situate that on their own.
Yeah, great. Yeah, this totally customizable. And you can make it look like it's coming directly from your company, which is great. Mark has a question. How do I send a link to someone to view or download a file, but not require them to log in? It's confusing people. And I've tried this and have been told that they were forced to log in. Can we run through that one more time?
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. Again, more so for an administrative side, the second half that I'm going to go through, we do have a great administrative webinar that's coming up, I believe, next month. I would highly say to sign up to those, again, if you're an administrator in here, because we will deep dive more into how to adjust things like that. But for instance, if I'm sharing out something, and we kind of went through this a little bit, but once we share, we could create that link. Or say, for instance, we could send to specific people. And if you click on edit options, or actually, let me take the link for a example. When we have this, we can edit our link options, and then you have who can access this link. By default, it should be going over to require sign-in. This is just for our security stance. So a fresh new account will always default to this. But when you drop down, you should see these two options here. Anyone, which is just anonymous, and then you have anyone, which is anonymous as well, but before they log in or say they access that content, it's going to ask them for a name and email. That will let them put in that email and name so that if you're doing a report, you could see what they put in. Now, if you don't see these anonymous options and you only see the require sign-in, if you're an administrator, you could change that default. Oops, apologize. Let me get out of that. Not sure why that uploaded. Let me just refresh. If you're an administrator, you can set if you want to see the anonymous options or not. So if you come into admin settings and you go under advanced preferences and then file settings, first off, this is a good doc. You can just search for ShareFile secure file settings. And then in here, you'll see we are going to be updating this a little bit because we adjusted it. But there is an option under the file settings where you can actually force requirement of logging in. So if I have that unchecked, that will actually allow the option for anonymous linking. So your administrator might have enforced that already on their end if you don't see it. If you are an administrator, go under that admin settings section and then go under the file settings and you should see it. My other page isn't actually loading. We've actually did update this so you can also set the defaults to what you want it to show. So if you didn't want to disable anonymous links, you could have it also just default to the require sign-in option, but allow them to change that if they wanted to. So that's very handy, depending on your compliance and the stance of security you want to be in terms of kind of enforcing that on the instance itself. So hopefully that helps.
And we're in the middle of rolling that out. That's why it's on some accounts and not on others. So wait a couple weeks and you'll see it there.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
all your other accounts.
Yep.
I have a question from Brad to ask, and I think this is pretty common, but we have clients listed out by name in their own folders. Does it make it any problem to nest each client folder under an alphabetical order? Like, for example, all clients starting with A under an A folder and so forth, or how would you recommend doing that client portal type situation?
Since Ricardo was going over folders, Ricardo, do you want to take that one? I could share my screen and I can of course go through it if you need to.
Sure.
All right. Me actually, did you want to share your screen or do you want me just to showcase?
You can showcase.
Okay.
But I wanted to get a better understanding of the question. Could you read it again for me again, Allison?
Yeah, basically, a folder structure recommendation, right? They
Mhm.
have folders per client. And then how would you suggest, nesting that and organizing that within their shared folders?
Oh, okay. So they have each folder dedicated to a client, right?
Mhm.
All right. So what I would do is I would have a top level folder, um, probably called clients, basic as that. And then taking it sounds like their client folders for each specific client is the top level. So you could do one or two things. You could have that a basic clients folder and then put all your clients that you currently have within that clients folder, the individual folders for them, or um or you could use dynamic folder templates. But because you already because they already have those folders created and those folders have data in them, I would simply create a clients folder and then select the individual clients and move them into that clients folder. Um, could you, John, if you click on more options there for the folder you're currently in, say if this were a client folder, an individual client folder, you could choose move folder and then expand shared folders there. And then if you had a top level folder just called clients, or you would select it from this list here and move those folders into that. So that's I hope that answers your question, but I think that would be the best move for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. A good other point to this is that when you're adding somebody, say, to a top level folder itself, you do have the option when you're adding them is that you can apply them to the subfolders itself. So be kind of careful with that. I mean, especially when you're at a top level, you say, for instance, you have a client's folder, you don't want to add them at the root level because that would actually, no matter what, take an inheritance to that person's permissions on the root folder, right? So if this was, say, just imagine these were client folders and this was somebody that you were working with particularly, don't give them permission to the root folder, give them permission directly down to the subfolder itself, and then add them here as permission. So just be careful of that because if you're at the root level, it will inherit of course, that permission down to your subfolders.
Right.
Great point. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think organizing it in a way that works best for you is always key. On that same note, Jennifer has a question. What are the significant differences between sharing a folder via email and adding users to a folder? And why would you use each scenario?
So yeah, I mean, I think that is dependent on what you're actually going to do with the client itself. So if this is just a one-off, say for instance, a client just needs a bit of information, it might not be somebody you're working with a lot, or maybe it's not a project you're working with them. It's just a one-off. I need to send them something very quickly. Independently sharing, of course, through your shortcuts or going into, of course, again, a folder and sharing directly from here is more than enough that you would need to get that content out. Again, remember, even if I'm in a folder, if I'm sharing this out, this one document, or again, several documents, or if I'm even including a subfolder, that doesn't give them permission to the folder directly. I'm selecting the material that I'm going to share with them, and that's all they're going to see. Vice versa, if there was somebody I'm working with, and I love this example because we're in tax season. Of course, this is a client. I'm a an accountant, I'm a CPA, and I have to get a bunch of documents from my client, and I want to create just a folder for them. So I'm not sending share request links back and forth. I can add them directly to this folder. So all the items are available to them in this folder. So then he can upload data. I can, of course, put data in there and they can click on it, download it, whatever they want to do with it. But that's always the easiest way to see it is if it's not long-term, it's a one-off. The share capability is more than enough to share the content you need. But if it's going to be long-term, you're working with them through a project or again, their taxes, then certainly add them to a client folder because in this way, again, they have that access to that folder. They don't need to go back and look at the request link or share link that you sent them. This way they have that access until, of course, that project is done.
Right, that makes sense, John. Thank you so much. And it looks like we only have 2 minutes left. I know there's still some questions in here, but we'll make sure to answer them offline and make sure you get all the help that you need. But I just wanted to say thank you to John and Ricardo for taking their time today and to everybody for joining us today. As I said in the beginning, you'll get a copy of the recording plus a ton of resources that were shared over the Q&A and from John and Ricardo as well in a couple of days, and we will talk soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Yep. Thank you all. Bye-bye.